Finally, for some real, tangible news to share.
As a child, I was known for make-believing. All alone, I created fantasies. As I grew, people called it self-deceiving. But my heart held behold the memories. As I walk through the world, I find around me something new yet familiar is in the air. I feel it everywhere, like the child's eyes on a Christmas night. I'm looking at now, finding answers to my prayers. It's a new day for those good old dreams. One by one, it seems they're coming true. Here's the morning that my heart has seen. Here's the morning that just had to come through. Same old stage, but what a change to see. No more dark nights and sorry blue. It's a new day for those good old dreams. All my life I dreamed of loving you.
Hello, hi, this is yours truly, Clarisse for the 14th episode of my podcast. Today is the 22nd of July, 2023, and it's a Saturday. So for this podcast episode, I want to share, it's a shout out to this channel, Cold Case. Cold Case Christianity, something like that. And I've learned so many facts, but I'm also I'm amazed by the courage and the bravery of putting facts that can instantly be repudiated, challenged, and could earn someone a lifetime supply of bashing and degradation as far as facts are concerned, right? So, Mr. James Warner Wallace is an American homicide detective and Christian apologist. So this also reveals my penchant for watching non-stop police story, detective stories, whodunit. Up to this time, I'm not yet fed up watching that genre. And Mr. James Wallace is a real life homicide detective who also testifies in court proceedings about his work, about what he found out in the course of his detecting. So he's a senior fellow at the Colson Center for Christian Worldview and an adjunct professor of apologetics at Talbot School of Theology in La Miranda, California. So he's born June 16th, 1961 at Torrance, California, United States. All these are on the internet. So his education, University of California, Los Angeles, California, California State University, Long Beach, Gateway Seminary in Phoenix, Arizona. And so this is another, something worthy to know, just like there should be, the educational attainment. It's always good to have the best background and education, the PhDs, the doctorate, and the modern day professional scholars They are guided by the disciplines of the academe that had evolved into what the universities can offer. And if the university is based in the first world country like the United States, diba? The credibility or the what you call the resume is already has already it's already established. I am struck by these thoughts just by listening to him and other channels. I hope to feature some of them specific, and that's when I want to mention the names. Common sense and logic will say that modern day scholars, professionals should be revising the works of old school, simple-minded, comparatively illiterate, uneducated people who didn't have a degree, and they have to earn a living. So all their pursuit would be on earning a living for them and for their family. So even without mentioning names, if I describe that ancient and old school simple man who is a fisherman, who had been a fisherman, who was involved in the among the fisherman sector, and some others working with tools like any blue-collared and industry grassroots folks. Their works would naturally reveal their education, their manner of speaking, organization of sentences and paragraphs. The philosophy of today, as offshoots of famous thinkers like Aristotle and the father of modern day philosophy, pronounced as René Descartes. Well, I cannot mention everyone because I cannot pretend to know them, since I do not have that kind of formal education. So this is what I can just observe. Men have devoted their whole life into structuring this abstract, intangible thinking process into a subject in college, into a AB degree, or is it BS degree in college. So now I know now where it comes from when we hear, in Tagalog, ano ba diskarte mo sa buhay? Palpak. Translation, your belief system, your philosophy in life, it's no good. Or on the other hand, ay, ang galing ng diskarte mo, panalo. So in Filipino language, we read as spelled. Descartes is really descarte. If a Tagalog person, if a Filipino person will read it without knowing the correct pronunciation, like, ay, ang pilosopo mo naman, which is a sarcasm. So going back, the edited version or the improved version, the remastered, the adaptations, the modified version that the learned man could have exercised or could have applied to the work of such men, illiterate, uneducated men. Nobody will raise an eyebrow, or nobody will should be offended by it. Men who had applied themselves to full-time scholastic undertaking could have altered our belief system at this time. The modern-day learned men and scholars from the academe could have found those ancient writings as, yeah, valuable and remarkable, but nonetheless crude and outdated if they are to be read in modern times. Granted, the scrolls full of ancient texts that could be read would be forward-thinking or abstract of the future at the time that they were written, but it could have turned out that those contents could use improvement in light of the evolution of educational system and the discipline, the attention, the attention and the effort given to disciplines, like the discovery of the exploding black powder that used to be a tool for magicians, but now they are being sold commercially as bullets and dynamites. I was I saw this plot in a movie, of course, where else? The early, the explosives, the beginnings. Well, the uniqueness of the scriptures is that it's not subject to ordinary logical thinking and logical order of things that has guided all other aspects of life and heralded as the key to the modern day civilizations that helped the policymakers in coming up with a peace and order that had been agreed upon by consensus, because it's good sense, it's practical, it's the result speaks for itself, and it can be studied in history. In terms of number of years away from the date of the origin of the scriptures, so far we're the farthest until we're not, until the next generation becomes the farthest away from the date of the origin of the scriptures. And yet the giant strides to technological advancement didn't sever the ties, as if there's an invisible cord that keep us as subjects of the scriptures. How come it's the other way around? And I have yet to encounter where it has the same attributes, because the mortality of men still confounds us to this day. The famous line during family reunions, "Oh, ano bang natapos mong kurso? Nakatapos na ba ng kurso ang ating kamag-anak, ang ating pinsan?" Don't get me wrong. I'm all for college education. That's why I did all that I could for my girls to finish their respective degree. But we sure could not hold it against the fisherman, the tax collector, whose philosophy will surely not extend outside the, how much you owe, when do you pay. Nope, that's not good. That's not good. Pay now or else. When I had introduced myself to offer my consultancy services, I didn't hide the fact of my college-level education. Had my educational background been different, I would have similar fact backs to bring along as introduction to every proposition letter and literature I distribute. Needless to say, it will increase the chance for success if I can also say that I'm a product of this renowned university. No, even a graduate of any college will do. But come to think of it, I devoted so many years perfecting my craft. But the ancient scribes who were not into writing did not attend seminars on the effect of active verbs versus passive voice. The technical writing, like what's the purpose of a paragraph and how can they be coherent, which will reveal literacy. Surely, there was basic training. I'm not educated enough, but I'm literate enough. Show versus tell to hook would be avid readers could have already existed then, although in another context. Would fisher folks have the time to self-study the basic elements of good writing when I could raise a heel with discarded manuscripts before I could be confident to venture outside my very private domain? Nursing my self-esteem so I could be bold enough to show my works. Had those scribes been students or been tutored by famous thinkers of their day, their tablets or whatever writing materials they had back then would have been preserved traditionally and not buried within the world's best curing agents to preserve them. Another coincidence? So many prologues could have introduced their work where great philosophers will vie to imprint their introduction to it, to attach their name. They would have said, these are the works of Matthew the Great, who had been the best student of this famous learned man, hence he writes this way. But no, had it happened to one scribe, yes, it's a quirky world, coincidence happens. It happened to two scribes, or random coincidences, but because it happened to different people of various timelines who did not meet each other personally or met each other regularly and personally and yet able to stick to one central theme, that defies logic, that defies common sense and expectations. Actually, it defies the batting average of the best group dynamics leader who is of ordinary human, who has an ordinary, human strengths and weaknesses. Somehow, I believe there was a certain detachment to the current events of their time to free up some occupation that can crowd thoughts and desires. If they are so attached to the world they live in, they would not have been fully willing and fully committed and listening to their inner voices or muses to write. Distractions and halfway changing of priorities, they can happen. Hello, so this is the second part of the 14th episode of this podcast. And I don't know if you can hear the background, but it's quite downpour. It's a rainy Saturday night. I'm just looking forward to later to, sleeping quite nicely with the cool weather that we have. So I started this podcast by mentioning the real name of a well-known private detective. I think he had been involved with some investigation, homicide investigation, and I had also from my research I had mentioned the university where he came from. So I want to begin this part two, this other half of my podcast, with another professional who is maybe well known also in his circle. Should I call him Domi, as I refer to Attorney Dominador Bornasal, or probably it's either of the two, I guess. I probably should not, because we're not friends. I just got to call him and we talked about some legal matters over the phone briefly, because I sent a letter, and he has been so good in saying that he was, if I can remember it correctly, he is no longer the clerk of court of Valenzuela City RTC, the Regional Trial Court, Valenzuela City, Metro Manila. So, and that my letter was still in his possession, and probably because he's not the clerk of court of the RTC of Valenzuela City, he should give me back the letter. And that was what we talked about over the phone briefly.
Forever and a day.
We would have met because I was scheduled to go to his private practice law office in Valenzuela City, but I thought better of it. Instead, I got to confirm, you know, I sent the somehow the some kind of the minutes of my meeting, not meeting, but my conversation with attorney Bornasal. And so I got to confirm the insignificance of the name that I call myself. Insignificance because attorney Bornasal was the only person from Valenzuela City who had replied back to me and who had given me a chance to explain. So fast forward to 2023. If I happen to produce a music event and decided to sell attorney Bornasal ticket so that he could go to my concert, either he will buy or he won't, diba? And it will not be because he never heard of me. So it will not do for me to sell him ticket to my concert and not remind him of how we happened to or how I happened to know him, and that if he has forgotten all about me, that's a reason I can bring back the detail of where it happened, and somehow given his graciousness the first time where he had taken the trouble of letting me know. I am more confident of the graciousness, even though he would not buy the concert ticket. Actually, I was thinking whether should I say the mythical ticket or the abstract or rhetorical ticket. But it's probably it's a matter of perspective. And so I happen to know him, and I will refresh his memory how it happened in 2017. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 6 years. But I am quite certain that the 6 years is not deemed the memory altogether. So he probably will graciously decline to buy my ticket because he won't have time, or that I'm not his cup of tea, or that he never heard of me sing a song, or he would not associate me in terms of good enough music artist. Like when I say renowned detective Wallace, I renowned, even though it's just last week when I first knew about him, because I wasn't part of the number of people who have known of him previously. And so I know that sometimes it goes like that, diba? We are fairly known in some quarters and relatively an insignificant person in some other quarters in others, diba? So yeah. So he won't buy a ticket to my concert because he might not like me enough to part ways with his say 500 pesos or 1,000 bucks. In fact, he can actively dislike me enough to say he hates my guts. Of course, all these are what would call what ifs, scenarios. This is not based on actual real life events. I truly hope that's not the case, but I can only hope because all feelings are valid, and it will not help my cause if it happened that he asks his friends, specifically lawyer friends, who is Clarissa or aka Clarisse, who had written to him and with whom he got to speak with for 10 minutes, yeah. And if I happen to sell him ticket, then he would know that I'm the singer podcaster. So what chances are there that of all the common kakilala or acquaintances or know of, met once, he'd have of all the people that he could discuss how about my call, about my letter, he would speak with those I had met once or twice, and all sorts of unpleasantness broke out afterwards. So what kind of feedback, what kind of introduction and details would they be telling about me? So it rather than speculate, because it won't be speculation, much like educated guess. Those are the things that one just accepts as part of life, the loca moments. So am I real? With all the details that I am sharing, this question would somehow come across as nonsensical, but it's not. So again, so am I real based on the details that I've shared with you? Is Attorney Domi to his friends, but Attorney Barnasal to me, is he real? As an individual whose work can be found in industries that can only thrive through public patronage, it is my business to get in touch with realistic prospects, no matter how unflattering it will be, like how comical are my attempts to increase my readership, increase my audience, diba? It is a cold hard fact that must guide me. So as officers of the court, it has been said that a lawyer is a lawyer 24/7 because of the oath he or she took upon passing the bar exam. And that's one of the things then that embolden us, to approach and to hang on a freebie. Probably that's what we call libre. But of course it's not it would be quite disrespectful to look at it that way, because they are professional, and before they got to the place they are blood, sweat, tears of money had been spent in their behalf. So it's just right to give them what is due them. So when I'm not in my podcast and song selections for the music event I'm going to schedule with friends, I'm here putting the body to the evidence to important timeline of two specific legal cases. The two legal case building I'm involved with. I've learned that with so many on the plates, there are times that the only way to move forward is to choose one that will have a beginning and an ending in a coherent way that's ready for presentation that's more or less complete. By the way, the friends that I still consider friends, I can only hope that my warmest regard for them is reciprocated and that it's mutual. I am in no position. I am in nowhere near that. I am not in any position to demand attention and affection from anyone outside of my family. And that's a great blessing, by the way. Not all will have people to demand attention and affection from in the most obnoxious way possible. That it will not be tolerated without the unconditional relationship that we have for one another if we're family. If we're a family. If my letters have been regarded as nuisance and causes of irritation, what more can my presence be, right? So I made sure that all the love I can give as well as energy to show my affectations, and most importantly, my expectations are not for strangers, however kind and generous they may seem to be. In the same manner, the love and caring that I actually need, that any human needs, will come from people who should do that and not pin them on, famous people, sikat or not sikat persons who may have their own people that can get slighted or feel cheated should someone like me suddenly demand more, and vice versa. So when someone breaches the boundary, one should be called out because it might be done unconsciously. And I am not an exception to that. So now you know the reason I am able to continue living my life in relative peace and orderliness in spite of the fake news of chaos, and that many horrible actions were attributed to me, like I was supposed to do that or say that to some unwitting victims, or that's just so sad. So anyway, so for the timeline which I share with thousand others, mine this particular timeline will had started the 22nd of June 2018 when I attended an event in MOA Convention Center in Pasay City here in the Philippines. MOA is Mall of Asia to those who only knows it as a memorandum of agreement. A major telecommunication company, PLDT, had sponsored the two-day event. So we're in the audience when speakers from various companies took turn to speak. They were on stage. That's where the nugget of idea became an actionable intel or information for me to begin a series of rebuilding an outlet from my music and writing career to another crossover industry.
Reducing free chatbots for businesses and automating a lot of tasks, whether it's big complex problems or basic rudimentary redundant problems for SMEs. That's what we do. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm with Crack Philippines.
And it was then that I learned what I should be called a startup. So the details may not matter in platforms like this, but for this reason to become a matter of assertion in other countries outside of the Philippines, and even here domestically, I cannot veer away from the facts that proofs can yield. My presence outside of this fishbowl address is also of utmost importance because I am asserting for billable hours in my research, and I welcome the challenges and justification needed if the amount that I will put on real papers are beyond the conscionable acceptability. Acceptability of whom? Of course, of the second party or the third, because we each of us acquire standing in each other's interest on account of the standing relations based on transactions that I will bring forth. My absence in this fishbowl address meant presence or personally taking care of errands in relation to or no relation at all to my other concerns. It may be that I will be in the company of an agent or employee of a government office that I need to speak with in person. If my honesty will be probed and that there will be question on my billing statement, which is part of the standard practice anyway, uh, to require me to explain or elaborate, I should be able to do so. Explain this. Why? Why so big an amount, or why, frequent, whatever. So what matters to international organization that can, give free legal representation for multinational concerns, jurisdictions, is the exhaustive appeal for help in our domestic and local counterparts like PAO, the Public Attorney's Office, the IPP, the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, etc. How many times did it happen? Can I prove that my letters and intents were understood and that they were to no avail? So, how to deal with official receipts and international/multinational legal contracts? I just cannot use this platform. The paperwork are needed for that, and that's why I've been so busy. Feeling the love, receiving the love, giving my love, and producing work for billable billing statements, performing my arts, and getting prepared for the validation. The constant update though they may irritate, can give advisory like, I would really hate it to be the reason why the world will shrink for some just because the legal case regarding this Filipino music and writer have prospered in certain place and sovereignty, and the mention of names might be inevitable. So, to give due diligence and proper deference and respect, it is not just justice for me if it can give an injustice and grievance to another person. So that's those letters, updates, due diligence, they are meant, as my way of informing them that in applying for travel abroad, I will not just be using the consulate, but also the respective Justice Department, the Bureau of Immigration, the intellectual property offices, and the international agency whose goal is to prevent human trafficking. There may or may not be a grand and famous Clarissa or Clarisse, but if she has pending court cases and legal concerns, we're bound to meet, or our representatives will cross paths before we do so. In the aftermath of rules of court admitting evidence generated electronically, where electronically sent subpoena is also a regular action of the court, then the official receipts received electronically cannot be ignored, especially in light of other consummated transactions. A verbal discussion held over and over and over again, like even 365 days a year, about hard copies, proof of international money transfer, a daily follow-ups that had been ignored about irregular multinational contracts, MOUs that have already been consummated, all in past tense, Mere anecdotal clarifications will not be a sufficient protection and due diligence for one of the controversial Clarissa Talagas. I have to put it in writing, and the other parties involved should also be prepared and informed that they too have to make statements which are under oath, just like me, because anecdotal account will not trace the bank transfer, or that customer care department will not transfer this inquiry, this concern to their legal department to find out what happened to the transfer of money. This is not about legitimate money that will be transferred, but this is money and earned income. This will be the earned income that had already been transferred. It's in past tense. It's not in future tense. It's not will be transferred, but I was informed that this money had been transferred already in my behest, in my name. So the name accountable is the name of yours truly, Clarisse talaga. So I don't think it cannot be any more real than that. So please stay tuned for the coming episodes, because this is a very good learning experience, not just for me, but for also for you. So this podcast is taking longer than I was prepared. So thank you for standing by, and hope to see you very soon. Thanks.